for choosing Yocket to be your platform to connect to thousands of students, who are basically awaiting to hear from you. They're very, very anxious at this point. And a session like this really helps to take the edge off and kind of inculcate that confidence that they need when they kind of face you at the time of the visa interviews, right? So just an overview of the entire afternoon. What we're going to do is we're going to have Ryan take the stage first. He's going to talk us some very, very interesting insights that you should be prepared for before you begin your journey in the USA, of course. Your life here, your colleges, your university life, right? How do you get adapted to all of that cultural shock that's coming your way in a good way, of course. And then, of course, Mr. John Hanna is going to address all of you. We're also going to have a Q&A session towards the end, wherein all of you can drop in your queries. The ones who are joining us from YouTube and Instagram, you can also use the chat box, and my representatives, my team, will make sure that all of those questions are forwarded to us in the meantime. Right, so stay tuned, and my strong recommendation is that you'd find the answers to most of your questions as our guests speak to you, right? So pay a very, very close attention, and hopefully you'd leave from here a lot more confident of acing that F1 visa interview that's a lot of people are very, very anxious about. Okay, so let's get started. And before we do, it's always great to know where people are joining us from. Right, what kind of admits have you gotten? At this point, I think we're at a time of the year when most of you have gotten your admits, at least for fall of 2024, and you know exactly what universities you're targeting. So you know what? It'd be great to understand what our audience is like. Where are they joining us from? Which city are you joining us from? And what are the universities that you're headed out to, right? So if you're around, take a minute and leave that on the chat box. It'd be great to know you all. And of course, while you're planning all of this, this is the culmination of your entire journey, a year and a half that you've spent in this. If you're still confused about financing your education, if you don't think you found what you needed, there's a link that's present in your chat boxes right now for Yocket Finance. Now, Yocket Finance is able to link you to multiple loan lenders. Right, the best of the market loan lenders are available to you at the click of one button at Yocket Finance. You can get connected to ICICI, Credila, HDFC, and many competitive ROIs that are present to you. Right, they're able to get you loans without a co-applicant. You won't need a collateral in some cases, of course, and the whole process will take about 4 to 5 days. So if you're at that point where you're still wondering if you made the right choice or not, the link is in the description box. My team will make sure that they also drop a link in the Instagram and YouTube pages, and you must check them out. This is an absolutely free of cost service, and you'd get all the assistance that you need and take a lot of edge, a lot of pressure off what you're feeling right now. So, kind of dedicate that task to somebody else and do the important thing, which is attending this webinar. Okay, right. So over to you, Ryan. Thank you for being so patient with me. And now it's your turn to shine.
All right. Thank you so much, Prerna, for having us here. And welcome to all for this talk on studying in the US and applying for the US student visas. Next slide. So as you can see, the US remains the sought-after destination for international students. There are over 1,010,000 international students currently studying in the US. Just take a rough guess of how many of those are from India. You can put it in the chat if you want. So there are actually 268,000 Indian students currently studying in the US. So that indicates that 1 out of every 4 international students at a US university is from India. And this number tells us 2 very important things. The first is that the US has been and continues to be a sought-after destination for Indian students to pursue their higher studies. And the second thing this tells us is that applying and being admitted to a US university is a lot easier than you might think. Okay? So most of you all have already gone through this process of applying and being admitted. So congratulations. And I wish you all the best in your journey and your pursuit of higher studies in the United States. Next slide. So you all have already done almost all of this process. You'll start, as Prerna mentioned, you'll started this about 1.5 years ago, selecting the universities, doing the applications, taking the GRE and other exams, applying to schools, and most of you all have already received your admission decisions and have been admitted to US universities. So the hard work is done. Now there's one aspect left. There are actually two aspects left. The first is to apply and get the student visa. And the next after that comes getting ready to go to the US. There is a lot of things you can do. Don't waste these next 3 months waiting to go to the US. There's lots of things you can do. You all should be attending the pre-departure orientation that Education USA has. We're doing the virtual one on July 19th. So attend that. That'll get you ready for life in the US. Over to you, John, for the visa talk.
Okay.
The next slide.
This one here. This one here.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So, as Ryan was saying, it really is easier than you think to apply for a visa, as long as you've prepared properly. That's sort of one of the main things we look at here at the consulate. So, student visas remain a top priority for the U.S. mission to India. As we've seen, there's a large number of applicants from India. We welcome students from India to the United States. It's one of the U.S. mission's sort of priorities is to encourage and increase the number of students from India to the United States. We issued a record number of student visas in 2022, more than in any other country. We're very proud of that. And consular resources are really dedicated to processing the student visas ahead of the upcoming student visa seasons, which we are currently in right now. So our current interview waiver policy, these are for student visa applicants who were previously issued a non-immigrant visa in any classification, unless the only prior issued visa was a B visa. This also applies within 48 months of their most recent non-immigrant visa's expiration date. And this would mean they don't have to appear for an interview. Now, for most of our student visa applicants, they will have to appear for an interview, and that's what this session is all about. So there's a couple different steps for the visa application process. You saw in a couple slides before the larger sort of timeline. This is sort of in that next window in terms of requesting an I-20 from your university as step one or step A. Completing your DS-160. It's available at those websites listed on the PowerPoint. Paying your visa application and SEVIS fees. And that's step C. And then after that, we'll be really scheduling the 2 appointments. And one is the biometrics at the Visa Application Center, the VAC. We ideally no more than 50 days before your scheduled interview date. Be sure to bring your passport and your DS-160. And then the second appointment is your visa interview at the embassy or consulate. And then, of course, actually to attend your VAC and interview appointments. That's obviously very important too. So the interview. This we get a lot of questions on. Credible student standards. So you must demonstrate to us that you're sufficiently prepared for your education and you really have a credible plan to pay for the education and really to use your student visa appropriately. For folks who are applying for an F1 student visa, we expect them to actually be students, which is different than a tourist visa or a work visa. There are some, and people can have a tourist visa and a student visa at the same time. That's certainly possible. But when you apply for an F1 visa, then you are actually going to be a student. These interviews are usually pretty quick. Reason being, they are just, as you saw those previous numbers, so many applicants coming in. And we want to give as many people the opportunity to have an interview. We have appointments available, but these interviews go fast. We want folks to have their passport and their I-20 form ready when they get to the window. And really be prepared to have a conversation. We may ask personal questions. We may ask about finances. We may ask about, your course of study and, and all that. We really want students to be able to explain to us that they are a legitimate student. They can explain their course of study and their ability to pay for it. So that's what we're looking at. So if your visa is approved, the officer will keep your passport. You'll receive an email or an SMS informing you that the passport and visa are ready. And that's usually done in 3 to 5 business days. Now, we usually tell people 1 week just to give, just have a little bit of a buffer, but usually it's done in 3 to 5 business days. So important dates to remember. So first-time student applicants should not schedule the interview until they have their I-20 in hand. Sometimes we have folks come to the window and they haven't paid their SEVIS fee. We really want them to pay that SEVIS fee before they come to the window. In fact, we'll just simply delay the interview until they pay it and they have to come back. So we don't want students to waste their time coming to the interview without having that I-20 ready. So be sure to have that ready before you come to the window. And also another thing to note is that anyone traveling for the first time on a student visa will not be admitted into the U.S. more than 30 days before the report date. So again, that's all kind of goes in terms of sort of timing of the interview and also when you land in the United States to start your course of study. So, because again, the purpose of the visa is as a student, not necessarily be a tourist for 4 months before your program starts, really to be a student in the United States. Another sort of side point to note in terms of vaccinations and boosters. So non-citizen, non-immigrant air passengers at this point do not need to show proof of being vaccinated with an accepted COVID vaccine to board a flight to the United States. As we've seen over the last several years, policies change. We encourage folks to visit cdc.gov website for vaccines and testing updates. But as of this point, you do not need to show proof of being vaccinated against COVID to enter the United States. So documents and interview. Sorry, my notes here too. So really important to note, applicants should never bring fake or fraudulently obtained documents to the U.S. Embassy or Consulate. Using fake documents, kind of is an important point to highlight, can result in a permanent ineligibility for the applicant. Really be cautious when handling documents containing your personally identifiable information from a third party. They have misused it in the past. We've heard, reports of that. They can use it, misuse it. So really be mindful of that and really be honest during the interview. That's, there's no sort of secret sort of formula for an interview. We really want people just to be honest. We want them to really explain why they're coming to the United States, what they're doing in terms of their studies, really be honest, answer the questions honestly. Don't, try to hide information or lie about it. It makes the interview a lot easier and a lot more smooth when folks are honest during the interview. Really be providing accurate and truthful information in your applications and your interview. Again, it kind of goes, with the previous point. And you alone are responsible for the information in the application. So if somebody fills out your visa application for you with incorrect information, you're responsible for the information once it's submitted. So if it's incorrect, we will look at it as if it is yours because that is on your application. So really be sure that you fill the information correctly and accurately because that's what we're going to be going on when we do the interview. So again, just to kind of reiterate that last point, in terms of logins and passwords, we really encourage folks not to share their passwords with other people. Really don't have control over how someone else uses your password. Once you've shared your password with someone, they can misuse it. We've again heard reports of vendors selling or reusing information. We don't want that to happen to you. We really want the application you bring forward to be an honest, accurate assessment of your intentions as a student. I mean, that's really what we want to say. So again, just to highlight that point again. So again, we're really kind of honed in on this. I know it's feeling like, kind of a bit repetitive, but really want to kind of emphasize this. Really don't accept assistance from people who charge you exorbitant amounts to get a visa appointment. If somebody says they can guarantee a visa for you, be cautious. That's not necessarily true. Only, when we talk to a visa applicant, that is what matters, is our interview, our discussion with the applicant, not anybody else's sort of false guarantees of gaining a visa or not. And again, if you notice any fraud, please let us know. There's an email address there, mumbai@state.gov. We really appreciate any information that you may have if you hear of sort of fraudulent applications or fraudulent sort of facilitators or things like that. So I'm sure you all have lots of questions. There's just a couple of frequently asked questions here. Sometimes we'll hear this question, if I applied for a visa but was refused, can I apply again? So we want to provide as many qualified students as possible with a chance to interview before we open appointments for interview for a second time. I think as of this point, there are enough slots for first-time student applicants who want to come for an interview. So that's, again, just to kind of note that. Another question we receive sometimes is if I receive my university acceptance but can't see an AF1 visa appointments. So the thing is, we know the students won't have their acceptance letters from their schools until a few months before the programs start. So that's why we wait to sort of release these sort of appointment tranches set aside for students. And we do that so that students have their paperwork already ready, so that when they when appointments are released in large batches, as said in the slide here, regular applicants don't have to worry about competing with visa agents. That's kind of why we do that. So, and again, we have lots of information on this slide. We can keep this up for a few minutes. Again, any questions you have, please reach us. Email, telephone, social media. We have Education USA's information there as well. And yeah, just happy to answer any questions you all have. And thank you.
Right. Thank you, John, for that very informative talk that you went us through with. Now we have some questions that are coming up from YouTube and Instagram. I'm going to post some of them to you that are more generic. So do we have an update on any refusal slots at the moment? I know you just discussed about refusal slots, but can you tell us when are they going to open up the next time for students who've been refused in this intake?
I'm just gonna write that question down. Let's see, do we have any information?
No, first-time applicants are given a chance.
Yes, yeah.
They'll just have to keep on trying for slots later on.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so right now we really still are, I don't have a set date yet on sort of when slots will be available for second-time applicants. We are still trying to prioritize first-time applicants for the slot.
Sure. So I guess a good answer would be once you're done with the first time lot, then probably you'd open the slots for the refusal slots again, right? Right. So
I think so. Yeah, I don't have an exact date on that, so I don't want to kind of.
So everybody who's tuned in, please stay patient. When they're done with the lots, there's a huge volume of students, of course, for every intake. For the fall intake, of course, there's a huge volume. So once they've gone through that, then please, keep checking the site over and over again, and you shall get your answers. Okay, the next one's, of course, related to funding and how can you show funding and will it become a problem? This question is, if a student has somebody funding them from the USA, is it okay if they have a sponsor who's settled in the USA? Is that all right? Or is that a red flag of any kind? Like to sponsor the student's education?
I think that's fine. We know that a lot of Indian families save money from not only their parents but from siblings, aunts, uncles, relatives. We know how valuable education is in India, and we respect that, and so that is fine if funding is coming from the United States. We want to make sure that there just is funding for these programs because they can be expensive. So yeah.
Sure. Okay, that's nice. Okay, the next one is, so once they've gotten an I-20, their universities have accepted them, will their CGPA or their academic performance in their bachelor's still have any kind of an impact on their visa status? Like, will their visas be rejected on the basis of how good a student were they in their bachelor's in India? Is that any criteria at all?
Well, it's one of many. There's no, as I kind of saying before, there's no sort of magic formula that, if I have this and this and this, therefore I get visa. It's not like that. It's really, we look at the whole picture of the applicant, the whole story. It's not just one thing. It's not just, a GPA or what sort of how much money they have saved up or where they went to school. It's really the whole picture. picture. We want to hear the whole story about students and kind of, their intentions, why they're coming to the United States to study. It's not just one sort of thing in their background. We look at the whole picture. So.
Sure. Okay. This one's coming up about filing and filling their DS-160. Do students need to provide their entire education background down to their schooling, or do you only expect to read about their last, qualification, as in their bachelor's, maybe their undergrad? Do they need to go down to the details of their schooling as well, their high school? Do you expect to find that in their DS-160 as well?
Well, it depends. Looking at their situation and that's a good, I'm trying to how to word this properly. Really look at the whole picture of the student, and just because somebody's been refused before, it doesn't necessarily mean they'll be refused again. Just because somebody has not been refused before doesn't mean they won't be refused this time. It really depends. Every student's different, and so it's hard to give a specific answer to that, because we look at the whole picture of the student. Okay. And we look at sort of what they bring at this moment in time with their application. So again, I'm sorry I can't be more specific with that, but that's kind of how I see it. Yeah.
Sure, I get it. Sure. I think this is an interesting one too. If there's a visa slot shortage in their home country, can their visa interviews be booked and given from some other country if they've got access?
So we do have, let's see here. I have a specific point on that actually in terms of, let me see. I had a point about that, about from another country. So you're asking, so if somebody's coming from another country, say from Nepal or Sri Lanka, for example, and they want to do an interview in India, is that kind of what you're, was that, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure.
I think it's the other way around.
For example, yes.
John, I think they're asking whether, since there are no slots available in India, can Indians go to another country?
Oh, I see. They certainly can. There is no so I'm just trying to find the exact point I have on this, because there is something that I want to mention that. Let's see, I can't seem to find it at the moment, but Indian students certainly can go to another country. You'd obviously want to check, of course, for any sort of travel.
We seem to have lost Perna. I'll ask you the next question, John.
Okay.
Do we need to show our bank balance even if we are going on an assistantship for a PhD? So if you're going on a fully funded program, do you still need to show any bank balance?
It's a good question. I don't think so. I mean, we really have our interviews as conversations with folks. It's less about looking at documents and more about talking to them about their finances. But yeah, I think for that situation, no, you wouldn't need to show that. No. It would really be part of a conversation we'd have with the applicant. So.
Okay.
If there's a minute spelling difference in my passport and my scorecard, is there a chance of the visa getting rejected? The name's the same, but it's spelled the wrong way in one of the documents. Is that a problem?
Let me just check this for a moment. Yeah. Let's see. Let me take that back to the team. I think in terms of certainly to notify us as soon as possible. If you notice something, if a student fill out, the S-160, fill out the I-20, and notice that the name of the passport spelled differently than on the application, certainly let us know as soon as possible.
Right.
And again, depends on the time, how much time there is before the program starts. We could certainly, take a look at that, but certainly just let us know as soon as possible. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. So.
Sure. I think I know the answer to this, but we'd rather hear it from you. Does it really make an impact? I'm sure, that the kind of university that a student is flying off to, the kind of admit that they've scored for themselves, a tier 1 or a tier 2 university, is that one of the primary factors in you giving out visas to a student, the kind of universities they're flying out to?
Not necessarily. We look at, there are many different types of academic institutions in the United States. There are literally thousands of them, all with various, geographic regions, various academic program strengths. So we do not look at anything as say, oh, this is a yes, this is a no. Not at all. We look at every application with a set of fresh eyes, and we look at, so it's less about the university and more about the student, really, so.
Right. And John, speaking from your experience, I mean, this is purely based on how you are as a visa officer. What are the 3 red flags that you kind of feel as a visa officer are a complete reject in your books?
Well, again, there's, I understand the sentiment for the question, and I appreciate, if I was a student, I would be asking a similar sort of question. Again, there's no magic formula. There's no set formula as to what's a right or wrong answer, or right or wrong, or approval or a denial for a visa. It's really, I think certainly one of the things I mentioned in the PowerPoint is about speaking truthfully and speaking honestly. Sure. That's really helpful. I think, and really speaking authentically, I think, I think really again, there's no set sort of formula. I think, we want to hear about why students are studying at a university, why they're coming to the United States, and we know there's academic opportunities there, but about their program. It's less about sort of memorizing an answer. It's more about really having a conversation with the student about what their intentions are and why they want to study and what they're going to study. That's what we're interested in hearing about. So,
Right. So I think that's about all the questions. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to this, Ryan? Anything that our students must be prepared for? Any parting words that you have? This is probably going to be the last session that we have on visas at this point. So for this session, at least. So any parting words that you both may want to share with the students, those who've gotten their visas, those who are still awaiting slots, anything that you'd like to say to them?
Yeah, I'll go first. First and foremost, congratulations to all of you for being admitted to a US university. That's a big, big task that's been taken off your shoulders. But once you get to the US, there's so much that's going to be thrown at you all from all different directions. I want you all to remember the purpose of you all going to the US is to study. So keep the focus on your studies. There's so much y'all can do outside of studies, but remember, studies comes first. That is my biggest piece of advice to all of you.
Thank you for that. Anything that you'd like to add to that, John?
Yes, no, that's very good advice. I mean, this is, it is really the purpose of studying there is to study. The flip side of that, of course, doing well in your studies, doing well in your exams and your grades. When you have a little bit of, for those who have been accepted to a U.S. university, those who will get a U.S. visa, is to explore a little bit, when you're there, and I don't necessarily mean, in addition to not just sort of exploring the United States, but even exploring your college campus. There are lots of different student groups on campus you can become a part of. I would really encourage folks who, again, have been accepted to university who do get a visa, when they're at your campus in the United States, is to talk to other students, and really kind of, explore the campus, explore the college and the different communities around there. I think it'll enrich your college experience. So, but again, congratulations to everybody who has been accepted to a U.S. college. We look forward to welcoming those in the United States. And we're again very, very proud of the numbers of students from India that are coming to the United States. Again, it's a priority for the U.S. mission, and we are just thrilled to have so many folks interested in studying the United States and welcome them. So thank you.
Right. So before we wrap this up, there's just this last question that again could be a little bit tough to answer, as when the students are asked what's changed this time since the last time they gave an interview when they were refused. So how do you tackle a question like that? You'd understand that it's coming from a student, so of course they're trying to hear an answer from you that'll satisfy a visa officer. So whatever you can say to.
And again, it's difficult to answer that because again, each student's situation is different. There is no, and I apologize to the student who's asking this question. There is no sort of generic answer to this. It's really every student's different, and so again, I don't have I'm sorry, I'm unable to give a sort of a concrete answer that will really kind of.
Not at all.
But that's we look at every student differently. Each student, we look at them with a fresh set of eyes every time they come to the window. So whether it be the first time or the second time. So so everybody does get a fair shake. So
John, there's a question that I'd like to ask. If somebody's been refused an interview, for example, in Bombay, does by any stretch, does it help if they change their consulates and they fly off to Hyderabad for their interview? Because the first piece of information that kind of, stares at the visa officer when they approach that window is that they've been refused a visa before, right? If they were to go back to the same Mumbai consulate. Is that true for another consulate as well, no matter which city they try in?
No, it's not true. No. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. So this marks the end of it. I mean, of course, the students have gotten all the information that they needed from the session that we had with John and Ryan. So I'd like to thank you. We're very, very proud that you chose Yocket to associate with so many students. We're live on YouTube and Instagram right now. I'd like to thank all of you who are here this afternoon. And I wish you the best moving forward when you do fly out in the months of September. I wish you luck with your interview. And for your life after that. It's going to be a hell of a change, but you're really going to have fun doing it. So thank you for your time, John and Ryan. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.